Hey friends, did you know that an anti-transgender TERF feminist awful person cries every time you donate to the Gaytheist Manifesto? Can we make a TERF cry together? Can we please make a TERF cry together? Erica is making TERFs cry this week. If you would like to know how you can make a TERF cry, go to patreon.com/the Gaytheist Manifesto. Consider a per episode donation to support the show. Thanks, friends.
Your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement. This is the Gaytheist Manifesto.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Gaytheist Manifesto. I am your host, Callie Wright, not joined by my fantabulous co-host, Ari Stillman, though they do indeed remain fantabulous. Words are hard, friends. Words are hard. So one of the perennial conversations around Pride and Pride Month is how corporate it's become, right? And to be honest, I kind of see both sides of that argument. I think there are worse things than like Target putting out Pride stuff and saying trans people can use the bathroom. Like there are worse things than that. But, then there are other examples of companies who are just like obviously trying to cash in with no understanding of the community and no sincerity behind their support, aside from the fact that like I had a gay friend in high school and I wasn't mean to him. Therefore, I am in fact the best ally. It's played out in a couple of big high profile ways lately. One of those was Ipsy, the makeup bag company. They were like, hey guys, we did this Pride glam bag and there's all kinds of makeup and we're going to make a video about people talking about being gay and doing makeup and stuff. And literally the first speaker thought that it was necessary to draw a distinction between trans women and authentic cisgender women, which if that wasn't bad enough, they gave a really, really shitty apology, deleted a whole bunch of comments that were critical of them. And it was just a bad scene altogether, like not handled very well, obviously not well thought out. And they weren't super into hearing criticism of it. And another high profile example of this is Teespring. And on the wrong end of that deal is our guest, Elle Clayton. Welcome, friend.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'll just let you tell your own story. I'm sure like most folks listening have probably heard at least the broader details, but can you just kind of give me a rundown of how this whole thing happened?
Sure. I was kind of riding the wave of the whole Ipsy thing, and I'd been pretty loud about that. And I was inspired to make these shirts because the whole Ipsy thing was based off like TERF rhetoric. So I was pretty mad at TERF, so I decided to make these shirts. And seeing as I'm in financial trouble, I decided to do a campaign with Teespring. And so it was up there for a day or two. And then TERF group on Facebook found it and started reporting it and like organizing this. And they got my campaign terminated. And they got me blocked from my account. Like I can't log into Teespring anymore. So I got this email from Teespring saying that TERF is a slur and explaining why they took it down. And I posted that on Facebook, and by the end of the day, it was like at 1,000 shares or something like that.
Yeah, and maybe this is just who I am. Like, I like to try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And like, I know like a lot of people do these organized things where they take advantage of algorithms that are written badly. So it's like, if this post gets enough reports, then it gets taken down. And so like my first thought was like, this isn't a good thing, but I hope this is what's going on. Like, I hope a person didn't look at this and say like, oh yeah, TERF is a slur, which like, if there's anyone listening who is unfamiliar, TERF is an acronym, trans exclusionary radical feminist. They are some of the worst people on the internet and the world. These are people who organize harassment campaigns and bullying campaigns of trans folks, not just saying mean things, but actively bullying and harassing people, encouraging people to commit suicide. working in these very well organized groups online to get trans groups taken down, to get trans accounts on Twitter and Facebook taken down for saying things like fuck TERFs, which, like, for anyone who is remotely an ally, should be one of the least controversial statements in the world. And so was there communication between you and like actual people from Teespring? Did you figure out how that whole thing went down?
Yeah, there was a lot of communication. There was a lot of back and forth. And I started running more campaigns because if people bought the shirts before the campaign was terminated, they would get their shirts, which actually happened. My girlfriend got her sticker that she ordered the other day, and it's really cool. So I started doing more campaigns, and each time those would get reported, and I kept getting basically the same email until it seemed like there was a real person on the other end who was basically saying, like, I don't want to debate this with you anymore. We've made our decision. And it was at that point when I went to some other websites and started campaigns there. And since then, Bonfire, something almost the same thing happened with Bonfire, another t-shirt company. But they came back really quick and were like, oh, no, it's okay. You can have your shirts on here. So that's been a little bit more successful. And I think Teespring might have seen that or maybe got their stuff together a little bit. And they did email me recently to set up a phone call. But I'm suspicious that they want to do a phone call so they don't have like a record, because they already know that I'm sharing this stuff on social media. So I told them, no, I'm not going to do a phone call with you, but I'll listen to your email if you want to send me something.
Yeah. And so you're still waiting on that?
I have not received anything. I was expecting something on Monday because it was one of their VPs actually that emailed me. So I was kind of thinking they want to save face or something like that, but I don't know what their end goal is at this point.
Yeah, and it's so hard because, I mean, at this point, regardless of what they say, there's no way to know if it's self-serving or if it's like, oh gosh, like we've really like made an honest examination here and we realize we were wrong, but like the damage is done, right? Like they've already handed this victory to people that are like, I cannot overemphasize how terrible these people are, both online and in real life. So like, I mean, I'm curious, is there anything that they could say or do that would be like, okay, yeah, stuff's cool between us?
Not at this point. They'd have to do some other things first. So part of the campaign against Teespring, when people started kind of like going after their social media, Facebook and Twitter, people started searching the Teespring website for slurs themselves and found plenty of them. Like if you go to Teespring's Twitter and look through the comments on their Pride posts, you'll see racist and misogynistic shirts that were on their website. And there's a lot of them that are still up. It's kind of
not vaguely racist and misogynist stuff too. Like this stuff is not shrouded in metaphor. Like it's literally like homophobic slur, misogynist slur, black women are trash, 1488, securing a children for white children, white power. Like this is like obvious stuff.
Yeah. So if they don't take that stuff down, why am I going to take anything they have to say like it's sincere?
Yeah, but so you've found companies who are ignoring the bullying campaigns, yeah?
Oh, totally. And I've had companies reach out to me, and I'm still trying to kind of get on top of things so I can reach back out to them. And people who want to host my designs and help me design other things. So it's ultimately kind of worked out really good for anyone else who wants to support trans women, but not Teespring.
Right, for sure. Make sure you send me those links on Facebook so I can put them in the show notes for the episode. Because I want to make sure anybody who's interested can go patronize your stuff and make sure that we throw a little business your way. So, there's another narrative that kind of undergirds all of this, in that like. Anyone who is remotely competent in trans issues knows that trans folks are far more likely to experience poverty in one form or another than the rest of the population. And so like doing designs on Teespring, like all of that kind of stuff, it really legitimately is a way, like this is how some of us feed ourselves, right? This is how some of us clothe ourselves and pay our rent. And what I don't think a lot of people get is that they see something like this and they think like, oh, like she put a design up that says fuck TERFs, haha, that's funny, but no big deal, right? But like it's actually deeper than that. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Totally. So yeah, I started this because I had a bill that came out of nowhere, and I needed to come up with a few $100s, and it seemed like a great idea that people were going to get into, and people were into it. And then all of a sudden, Teespring takes this down, and it took me, a few days to get anything going again. And I'm not getting them. I haven't gotten any of the money from the things that did sell for Teespring. My other campaigns aren't done yet, and I'm not going to get the money from that. The bill has come in passed, and I've taken care of it. But there's been a lot of drama, and a lot of things have happened, and ultimately, I'm still here just trying to figure out my finances. So it still doesn't feel like, in spite of things kind of turning around, like we've won. Personally, for me, still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, well, and speaking of this happening during Pride Month, I still have a lot of conversations where people are really shocked to find out that in the broader LGB community, there is a lot of hate against trans folks, and I mean, lots of TERFs are cis lesbian women, right? And so there's an even more sort of broad commentary on this, because in the mind of a TERF, this is an attack on the true queer community, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
There's a lot that can be said about TERFs, but I think the most important thing is recognizing that they are definitely in the queer community. There are a lot of lesbians, and they're very kind of tricky by calling themselves radical feminists and always using the term radfem and getting people to believe that TERF is a slur. They get themselves into feminist spaces, and then they talk about men when they're really talking about trans women. And a lot of people listen to this rhetoric, and they don't think about where it's coming from, and they believe it, and they're like, I don't know, they take it seriously because they think it's coming from feminists. They think it's rhetoric that protects women, and they hear the term misogyny and they believe it. But what the real thing about TERFs is they look at the things that trans women experience out in society, and they want to reproduce those things. They want to reproduce discrimination. They want people to be prejudiced against us, and that's what they do.
Yeah, well, and I think it also is a very, I don't want to say clever, because clever has a positive connotation, but that's the first word that comes to mind. It's a very clever way to take advantage of broader society's ignorance around trans people, because one of the things that I think makes trans folks uniquely vulnerable is that for most of society, we're still kind of a question mark, right? Even with all of the news coverage and some of the, at least a little bit of positive representation we've seen in the media, there's still a lot. They're just like, oh, I sort of vaguely know what transgender means, but I don't really get what that's all about. And so if a TERF is the first person to explain transness to someone, instead of filling in a blank void, we're automatically fighting an uphill battle. And I think that's part of what makes these folks so dangerous, because it's this really weird sort of alliance that happens between people who are otherwise sort of the definition straw man leftist, and they have this really weird alliance with people on the far right who are also white supremacists. And just and it's interesting to me how people are willing to put those sorts of priorities aside to ally themselves over these issues, when it's 99% of the time, these people are diametrically opposed to each other, right? But on this one issue, the humanity of trans women, they tend to agree that we're not actually, and it creates this weird alliance. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That just reminded me of something I experienced a year ago. I have a friend of mine I've known for a long time, and we've got a lot in common. And I was living with her temporarily, and one morning I was explaining what TERFs are to her, and she's like, well, I kind of agree with them, which I was immediately like, oh. And she said, well, trans women do experience different things before they transition, and that makes them different. And she starts going into basically TERF light. And I'm sitting there trying to defend my humanity and say, you can say all these things that TERFs say, but it doesn't change what trans women experience before they transition. And it's not male privilege, and it's not male socialization, and all those clever, it is clever, the words that they come up with. And and I find even people here, I live in Seattle and I drive for Lyft, and I was driving some people the other day that I thought were part of the queer community, and they were talking about something at work, and one of them said, people that were socialized male, and they were like trying to say like, oh, how do we explain this to people that are socialized male or something like that? And I just pulled my car over and I was like, you're going to have to get out of my car right now. What you're saying is trans exclusionary rhetoric. And they of course pulled the like, oh, well, can you please educate us and all this stuff. And I was done. I was like, no, it's not my responsibility to educate you. Get out of my car. So I deal with TERF rhetoric coming from this progressive community that I'm, up here in the Pacific Northwest, coming from within the queer community, coming from all sorts of people. It's like every angle.
And it's and it's so frustrating because someone will take like, yes, of course, cis women and trans women have different experiences, right? And there is no one who would deny that fact. And I think trans women are actually uniquely aware that cis women and trans women don't have the same experiences. And it kills me how often I have to like defend the fact that like I am a trans woman who has experienced life on one side of transition and the other, and I've gone through the medical transition and the social transition and all of this stuff. Like, you don't have to explain to me how different I am. Like, I'm reminded literally, like, I can't wake up in the morning without being reminded how different I am. But they take that one step further and say, well, okay, so you're acknowledging that these things are different, therefore not real women. Therefore, you can't pee in my bathrooms or swim in my pools or change in my locker rooms. And it's this really frustrating thing because transness is a very broad and nuanced thing, right? Just the word trans means 1 million different things. And it's very easy for a TERF to boil it down and say like, well, trans people are men who think they're women. And we have to be like, if we want to give an honest representation of what transness is, like I need like a half hour to build context and then like 15 minutes to explain that trans is an umbrella term and that gender is a spectrum and some people aren't on it. And, some people medically transition, some people don't, some people feel social dysphoria as opposed to physical dysphoria, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's this uphill battle where, we have to have an actual conversation and we have to talk for a long time to explain this. And they just get to be like, there's men who want to be women. And like, that's all they have to say. So like, how do we, I'm interested, like, obviously, these conversations and this sort of activism is important to you. And I'm interested in your thoughts on fighting that. Cause that's something that I think about all the time.
Well, sure. Like framing this as a fight between TERFs and trans women, and trans women have a lot of fights going on. This is just one particular one. Whenever I talk about the relationship between trans people and cis people, it always comes down to like trying to control the narrative and who's controlling the narrative. And in terms of just cis people in general, there's the narrative is controlled by discussions about bathrooms and military stuff, right? But when it comes to TERFs specifically, and what makes their ideology so dangerous is that they're using this lens of trans exclusion of and talking about things in terms of male privilege and all the things that come with like not respecting the existence of trans women, right? They're trying to create this lens.
This buzzwords that people are automatically going to listen to. Like, yeah, I know misogyny is a thing. Yeah, I know male privilege is a thing. So I'm listening to you where I wouldn't be listening to like Ben Shapiro or somebody like that.
And these are like dog whistles, right? And what I'm fighting for in my community that I'm trying to build online, we're trying to fight for an understanding of what trans women experience through the lens of trans misogyny. Like you said, like none of us are trying to argue that our experiences aren't different. I'll be the first person to say my experience was extremely different than cis women's experiences. It was also extremely different from cis men's experiences because I wasn't experiencing male privilege and I wasn't experiencing just misogyny. I was experiencing trans misogyny. And I am fighting really hard to see that narrative and that understanding persevere.
Yeah. Well, we definitely want to support you as much as we can. Can you just rattle off the names of some sites you're on? Like I said, once we're done here, shoot me all the info on Facebook. I would love to link it in the show notes for the episode, blast that out on our social media and stuff like that to get as much support as we can for you.
Totally. the best company I have my shirts with right now is Bonfire. You can find links to that on my Twitter. My Twitter handle right now is TERF Herder Ulu.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
It's pretty easy to find me if you want to go check out the Teespring drama. I'm all over that. But Bonfire is the best place to go right now. Twitter is the best place to find me on social media. I have a Facebook, but you're not going to be able to find me unless you're a friend of mine. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're busy, and I screwed up some of the scheduling stuff, so a lot of that's on me, but I appreciate you taking the time. Best of luck with all of this stuff. Hopefully we can make a dent and get some support thrown your way.
Thank you so much for having me.
That, my friends, is going to do it for this episode of the Gaytheist Manifesto. If you think what we do here is important, please share this around to your friends. Search the Gaytheist Manifesto on Facebook and Twitter to find us there. I'm at Gaytheist Callie on Twitter. You can email us at podcast@thegaytheistmanifesto.com. We are a part of the Trans Podcaster Visibility Initiative. We're a group of trans podcasting badasses working to bring more trans voices into podcasting and other content creation. Search the Trans Podcaster Visibility Initiative on Facebook for more info. If you want to support the show and the activism we do, you can head to patreon.com/thegaytheistmanifesto. Make a per episode donation as little as $1 per episode. And if that's not in the cards, you can give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and share us around to your friends. It all helps and it all makes a difference. Before we go, I want you to know that if you're lost, you're hurting, you're scared, if you feel like no one cares and no one understands, you need to know there's a community out here that loves you, cares for you, knows that you're capable of amazing things, and that you are worthy of love. If you're struggling, please don't be afraid to reach out. Until next time, friends, this is the Gaytheist Manifesto.